Hello, this is Rebekah Freedom, and this is Heard Not Seen episode number 31. And I'm in the studio today with producer John Beethan. It's been a minute.
It's been longer than a minute, but yeah, it's nice to have you back. We've been doing remote. She's been recording from her setup. Why don't you tell them your setup?
Okay.
Podcasters like to know this. I mean, people listen. It's like, what do you got going on that you get this fabulous sound from your bedroom?
Right.
Or wherever.
Yeah. So my smooth, silky voice is recorded on Reaper, which is this amazing program that it only costs $60 for the rights to use it as much as you want, sort of on an individual basis. It costs more if you're doing more commercial stuff. And
so it's recording software?
It's recording software, again, called Reaper.
And how is it? Where is it installed?
It can install on Apple or PC. And you can get it online. You just look up Reaper.
I bet you didn't think this was going to be the Rebekah Freedom Tech podcast, did you?
Well, just so everybody knows what we're going to actually be talking about today, speaking of tech, is my life off of social media.
Yay.
Yeah, and just we're going to dive into that. So just to give a rounding out of your question, I have a compression microphone. Forget the brand, forgive me, but I went to Guitar Center and they set me up with all my podcasting gear. The reality is that I went overboard because I thought, I'm going to plug this into my iPhone, only to find my iPhone didn't have enough gigabytes and that the particular iPhone didn't have the recording software I needed. So what ended up happening is now I just record on my computer in my home. I don't really go out and do in-street interviews, which was the original plan. So the $300 I spent on my podcasting gear can really be $40 for a mic that just, if you want to just
we recommend
basic.
About 60 or 69. You can get them on sale for $49 from Amazon when they come up for sale. The ATR 2100. It's a USB XLR mic. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah,
blah. Or you get to be so lucky and have an amazing producer like John to set all this up. So speaking of the setup.
Oh, the setup here?
The setup.
All right. Let's start with, I have 3 external digital recorders, and I went external after 12 years ago when I did my first podcast, losing an exquisite episode with somebody quite well known when I was recording on my computer and it blipped. So I went, that's it. So right now I'm recording on a 24-bit digital Edirol R1. And understand, that's 12 years old.
Have we satisfied the geeks in the audience?
And then I have a Mackie 1202.
Awesome.
Which is a 12-channel mixer. And then 2 C3 1000s, AKG C3000s. And then I'm actually speaking on an AKG C1000. And these microphones I got 12 years ago because I was recording a lot of music and bands in the studio. And it was a lot of fun and just wanted that sexy 2-inch diaphragm sound, NPR quality.
Meow.
On to the show.
Well, it's really helpful, I think, for people to have a little sort of behind the scenes, behind the Wizard of Oz of what it really takes to have a podcast together. So we've never really talked about like what this looks like, because at home it's just one mic and my recording software. But when I come here, there's checking levels and there's all different sorts of things so that we can get out this material to you. So thanks everybody for listening. And I want to jump into life without social media. Life with, oh my gosh, like.
So I'm going to ask you, what started that?
Yeah. Gosh, like I can imagine the people listening being like, what? Some people being like, there's no way that they could ever kind of go quote unquote backwards. And I'm like, how far back? I tried to like stop social media and then cut off texting from my phone, but you can't stop you can turn text message off or whatever, but it's really sort of one of the preferred ways that people communicate with you. So I was like, how far into the woods do I really want to go, so to speak? Okay, so what I noticed over the course of last year, the prevalence of app dating of Bumble, of Tinder, of OkCupid. There's so many forums of which to put up a profile, and we've become entrained to it. We've sort of just realized we have been taught to think that's normal. Mm-hmm. That's the norm, right? Mm-hmm. And I went through a whole year of that, and I was kind of taking inventory of the baker's dozen of douchebags that I ended up encountering last year, me being one of them, because you have to be in a really sort of urgent, quote unquote, douchey place to participate in that sort of madness, right? I'm just going to swipe like your picture, and then we're going to meet. And
yeah,
have
it's
sex.
Another version of the Hunger Games, right?
Bingo. Bingo. All right, you guys are I have an ear itching situation, so hold please. All right, back online. There was no way I was going to make it through the podcast without doing that. So I started taking inventory of last year, which is a natural occurrence in January. You sort of do the reflection thing. And I was like, well, man, app dating really contributed to a lot of rash decisions that ended in really bad consequences.
Yeah, you spoke a little bit about that in the last podcast, episode 30, titled?
I don't remember.
About friendship.
Okay. Oh, probably just the value of friendship. Yeah, to that degree. So I kind of, what's happening when I remote record is I riff. Mm-hmm. I sort of just, and it might come through today, but I felt like let's change the cadence of the podcast. Cause when I get on there, I start, waxing poetic, and I have my own version of spoken word, Dr. Seuss-ish sort of languaging that comes out. So, to answer your question succinctly, it was introspection that was unavoidable that made me say, social media is literally making me sick.
Wow.
It's taking my time. It's crippling my mental health. I'm comparing myself to these young models and girls and body things and the before and afters that you see of people. And my Instagram was like flooded with those. And then it's sort of a closed loop, because what you like, they feed you more of. Mm-hmm. There's more suggestions around the same sort of format. So there's like this inundation that's happening. And because I used my phone as an alarm, my first thing I would do is I would wake up, my alarm would go off, and I'd be on Facebook within seconds. Just that was how I was. And they say the first 20 minutes of how you start your day sets the tone for your day. So ultimately, I had to really take a pause and be like, wow, this is eating away hours and hours of my time. I feel less connected, and if I really look around in my life, I don't have the depth of relationships that I want. And that, above anything else, was the biggest motivation, is to say, like, I'm tired of surface relationships. It's not doing it for me. So I guess you could play devil's advocate. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the nature of texting, the nature of all of that. Mm-hmm. There's very little real sensory information. Well, there's none really sensory information that comes through. So I'm sitting across what's your name? Rebekah. Rebekah's on a couch with a microphone in front of her, and I'm at my desk, and I'm looking at her face to face in her eyes, and I can see, like, even when I made that stupid little joke, her face got a little red. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't see that on Facebook. And even Facebook Live, it's just not going to happen. So it's like we pretend that video actually is better, but not necessarily. Like, there's no sense, there's no smell, there's no taste, there's nothing going on besides a mental...
masturbation.
Well, that was the word I was going to use, but I thought...
Well, John, of all the podcasts, I think I have one that is like less explicit.
Yeah, I know.
It's not just like it's degrees of explicit. So, you know, Jason Silva, the sort of he of his podcasts and his articulations at first are annoying, then they're sort of seductive, then they're annoying again. But when I was in a period where I could really listen to his over-articulated sense of talking about everything, there was a podcast I caught, or a vlog that I caught about ontological reality. That which we create creates us back.
Yeah, you've talked about that before. Not necessarily on the podcast, but yeah, I get you.
So what I noticed is that my relationships were mimicking the relationships I was having on Facebook. In my real life, I have a very specific example. And if this person listens to it, fucking good. Because I'm in the community in Encinitas in North County, San Diego. And I'm sure this applies to parts of LA as well. Relationships, I think, are a bit transactional. What can I get from you, with the veneer of I might be able to give you something, right? Trojan horse style. So
that's really well said. That's how I experience it too.
And that's what I was doing. I was like, I want to advance my business. So I'll talk to you about your business, only so I can destroy you. I'm just kidding. No, that's not really like me. I guess that's the Machiavellian kind of part of my brain. But it was like, there was a surface thing happening, and I have a very real example of this. So I met somebody through, I did a reading. Someone posted something on Facebook. A person reached out to me. I met with them. And then we kept meeting back and forth. And the original premise was like, well, I'll help you with this kind of aspect of your business. You can teach me some of the skills you have. We're just trading skills back and forth here. But then eventually time passes and 3 months go by, and, you know, conversations about our lives and different things start to surface, and there seems to be a candor there. But then I have this natural proclivity to just be like, well, when I'm spending time with somebody like that it advances into other arenas besides just meeting in coffee shops. Like, come over, let's go out to a movie, let's go do like actual, I think the word for that is friendship.
Yeah.
Right? Or am I making that up?
And relating.
Mind blown. Right? Not like in like actual in-person relating. And so my awareness started coming up about like, it was kind of confusing because there was the Harry Met Sally undertone that like guys and girls can't actually be friends because they're both thinking about like having sex with each other. You know what I'm referring to?
I do.
For those of you who have not watched Harry Met Sally, like what, like obviously Netflix that right away, because you can't go to a video store anymore because they're dead. They're gone.
Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal. Yeah,
Meg Ryan, Billy Crystal. Fantastic. Okay. So there was a little confusion around like, is this going to be like, what's the undertone, what's the undercurrent of this? And there were some missteps around it. But
so this is all happening on social media?
No, this is an individual that I met in person. You
couldn't tell?
I couldn't tell. So the reason what I'm saying is this live relationship, right, of meeting in face-to-face, actually mimicked the same type of relationship you would have on social media, where it's surfacey, but you think maybe you're getting something out of it, but you're not actually going to the next level of depth that you would want to go to. There's not like, and so eventually that really came out, and I finally had the wherewithal or the acknowledgement concurrent with this time of me being like, I want deeper relationships, of asking, are you available for that? And the answer I get is, I really like things how they are. I don't want anything with expectations. I adore you, but I'm just really busy. I got to get shit done.
So what was the point of spending time with you? I missed something there.
Right.
Well, buddy, you just blew it. You just went against your own values. Why did... Yeah, it makes no sense.
Okay, so overall, we're going to get to a couple bullet points. I always like to do this in the middle,
yeah, I know,
for people that are have low attention spans, because social media literally has a detrimental impact on your ability to sustain focus. So I'm not sure how many minutes we're in here. I'm going to guess around 10 minutes of
15.
conversation, about 15 minutes of conversation. So we've lost probably a majority of people by this time in the podcast.
Perfect.
Yeah. But if you have listened so far, I want to really go over a couple things. So it does take technology to create these sort of offerings, right? We are blessed in the realm that I don't have to, create the ink press and press this. Like my voice can be carried because of technology, and I'm not here to badmouth it. I'm here to just say my experience was that the overuse of technology, what they call it, is like the slot machine in your phone, which is which people who do development, who do code, take cues from Las Vegas and from casinos to make the apps and things as addictive as possible, to keep you on the phone as long as possible. That I was being entrained into that reality, and the impact was I was getting sick. I wasn't having depth of relationships. I was having sex with people that I didn't really know, and sort of participating in this weird cultural norm, that I would say, and then the illustration I just gave was I was having a Facebook relationship in real life, a shallow relationship that I thought I was getting something from. And it's not to say that I wasn't getting part and parcel, but where I'm at now and where I'm inviting the listener to go to with me is to examine what it takes to have depth of relationship, and some would say to bring back the old school ways. It's not about the time frame of things. It's about something that is just part of our biology, part of our mental, social, physical well-being is connection, it's depth of relationship.
Well, as you know, I won't mention any names, but there is somebody that teaches something, which is that the mind is not a sensory instrument. So, once again, in terms of sensory instrument, I actually took Facebook off my phone.
Yeah.
For the same reason. It was just full of distractions of people that, quote unquote, I was friends with. Mm-hmm. But after looking at what was being posted, I realized we're not friends.
Mm-mm. No. So
it's, and then there's this whole conversation about followers, which I think you talked about.
I did. I was like,
followers, is it really stalkers? I mean, sort of, right?
It can get a little creepy, and if you really examine it, if you stop and examine it, and just say, so connection, in the world of attachment theory, and we'll put these, I'll put this in the note.
I want to hear about that.
Yeah.
What's attachment theory?
Attachment theory is the idea that as an infant, you have a sort of a secure attachment, which is where you can get your needs met, food, touch, and movement, which is the necessary qualities for survival and for growth, mm-hmm. development, mm-hmm. Food, nutrients, right? Mm-hmm. Both real and figurative. Mental learning is a nutrient, of course. Touch, you need to have intellectual touch, presencing, someone who can be really present with you as your emotions come up to help you regulate them. And of course, physical touch. We know, if you study neurobiology, that touch is it reduces stress, it ups the feel goods, it's so necessary. It also promotes nerve development, which as a young infant you need.
Awesome.
And movement. the coordination is coming on board. Your bowels have to move, your lungs have to move, your heart has to move. There has to be, there's all the elements there. So, but because you're this developing being, a baby that comes in the world that is really helpless, you have to have a caregiver that's or you die, or you die. So attachment theory is the idea that a caregiver is somebody that you can go explore in the world, but then come back and there's a consistency at which they're there. You get your needs met, you're nourished, you're filled back up, then out into the world you go and explore. So it starts to develop the Janice face, right? And again, links in the notes. Half inward looking, half externally faced, right? What's out there? What can I get? What's in here? What can I really like, to fill me back up? Now, what happens is we don't all have awesome caregivers. We have some caregivers are completely emotionally irregulated. They don't, when a flood of emotions or sensory things come in, their body is organized in such a way that creates high stress, reactivity, low ability to communicate, regulate. So we see the two options, fight or flight, shut down or express rage and anger, hostilities. So I'm sure some of you are nodding and being like, that's my mother, or that's my dad, or my dad just left.
Or that's me.
Or that's me as a parent, as a caregiver to myself. And so attachment theory says that there's secure attachment, but there's also some anxious attachments, meaning there's anxious avoidant, where the parent was too hostile. It was too risky to try to get their needs met from that caregiver. So it creates a hyper independence in the kid. And anxious ambivalent, come close, go away, where you have a good cop, bad cop type parent situation. It's random in which way you get your needs met. And so you create this sort of, it's always the chase. It's always the chase. Then there's also disorganized. And this is what you see in kids that are locked in cages, that are severely neglected. The highest level of abuse is they can't orient to anything really. It's just, so the good news here and applying to actual life is no matter the depth of pain or neglect or whatever you have experienced in the realm of anxious attachment, it takes only one person. And the reason I bring this up is because having 600 friends may feel like a secure attachment, something that's reliable, predictable, and something you can replicate. I can go back to this. It's going to be there. It's going to be there. It's going to be there. That is one fragment of an element of an actual relationship in life. It only takes one. You don't need a whole entourage. You don't need another option for Saturday night all the time. One person, and this doesn't mean a romantic person. I'm not talking Grey's Anatomy, my person, We'll get into the god of romance here in a second. I'd also like to add this podcast is going to probably go into the longer version because there's so much to cover when you're getting off social media. It blows your world open. So Facebook is this false secure attachment. It's replica, but these are the same elements as any drug. It's reliable, it's predictable, it's accessible, and it's repeatable. Those are the parenting elements that we go back to for drugs.
And endorphins. And
then that dopamine dump where you're like, and then where you get bonded, and the oxytocin dump and the serotonin dump that happens. So this is what's happened to me since I've gotten offline.
So you're in recovery? So I was telling Rebekah last week she could do a whole thing on breakup rehab, social media, breakup rehab, relationships, breakup rehab, a bunch of stuff.
Yes.
So this is breakup rehab, social media.
Breakup rehab.
So we have a name for the podcast. Yeah. Maybe.
we're going to throw it around a bit. Finally. So the first thing, okay, so it was absolutely solidified me getting offline. If you listen to episode 29, I think I might have go into it in episode 30 a little bit about, I found there was somebody online who found me, had a conversation with this person, then they started to attack me. They started to really be venomous towards me, and it was actually pretty terrifying. I feel like it might be an inert situation, and of course my hope, I'm going on with life as if it is. But it was a confirmation, if nothing else, an energetic confirmation of the intensity of this choice that I was making to get offline, because there's certain times where I've disabled my account and then, a couple days later,
you get curious and
you're just like, what's going on? And I will say that I did, there's a sense of like you lost this directory of information. So there was some of that, but it really solidified for me get offline. So, okay, so I disabled my account. I logged out of Instagram. You can't just disable Instagram. So I didn't want to like delete it altogether because it is a helpful tool for marketing purposes in the future. Again, that's like an alcoholic almost saying I can just have one drink. I know that. But what happened immediately was a sense of relief. And spaciousness started to fill up. The next thing that happened is my brain was like, now what? So I started watching a bunch of TED Talks and really absorbing. It was still digital, so I was like weaning from one thing to the next. But then I moved from TED Talks to reading actual books, Yeah. In the style that I do, I normally chunk read. That's my, I don't sit with one book and go all the way through. I'll take part and parcel, and that just feels good. And I'm curious to see if I have a more sustained focus as time moves on.
Can I say something? Yeah. One thing that's interesting is the advent of social media, what we now have is what's called push technology. So things are pushed out to you, notifications. When you unplugged and started like TED Talks, that's pull, which means you have to go there. Search, request, there it is, bang. You're pulling. And that would be the same as laying in bed reading a book. It's not, no one's throwing the book at you.
Right.
You're searching, you're pulling it yourself, and you're making a decision and a choice about what's going to be in front of you. It's a completely different experience.
And thank you for those two words.
Which ones? Push
and pull.
Right.
Brilliant.
Good.
Brilliant. I will definitely expand on that particular piece, and I want to forecast that a couple things coming up. We're going to be talking about coaches, narcissism. I can see it on the horizon as we switch. So the big reason, the fundamental reason that I also chose this is not only for depth of relationship, it was for my personal well-being, because I also recognize over the last 6 years of running my counseling business, first Transform Now Counseling, Transform Now Counseling. Maybe I'm a little emotional about it. Transform Now Counseling, and now Rebekah Freedom, counseling, spiritual counseling. I had a hard look at that too. And I said, that's been push energy this whole time. It's been me, my I, what's my colors, my website, my brand? What do I want to say? What do I need to niche in? And this is what they teach right away. This is what's taught. There's some, what's your why? What's your why? Right. But it's not, I don't know that I really had this moment of, it was so moving. I was laying down for a nap, because when I need to stop and reset, I just go down. I just nap. If I have it available.
I do it actually every day. Yeah.
If I have it available, I say, let's reset in that liminal space. That liminal space between two worlds. I was really delivered with like, think of all the problems that are in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Think of them. And I started to say that my push energy was the survival of the masculine. I mean, it's 10 years this year since my mom has died. I made it through a decade. And I just turned 37 this month, and this is a year of sort of new beginnings. And I was like, gosh, I was born into a female body. I'm really starting to see the power of if you are able to be fully in your creativity and sexuality as a female, how potent that is. And that I wanted to just feel my soft heart finally, to be congruent with not this identity of defending, which I've been doing my whole life, literally from age 1, from birth to now, dying in my crib to coming back to year 37. I have been in defense mode of this, growl and this masculine energy as a coat of armor. And one of the giant wounds that's come out of that is this sense of never being understood. People don't get me. I'm a pride. Something's wrong with me. I don't fit in. I don't know that I want to fit in. Okay, well, if I'm not going to fit in, then I'm just going to be a rebel. I'll just, and again, if I listened to all last year's podcasts, that was the voice that I was speaking with. Very loud, very obnoxious. I mean, some of them, there's mixtures of wisdom that magically come through, but I just had to really take stock of like moving forward. That doesn't feel like me. And that's the same thing about social media, is it was reinforcing the wound of being misunderstood, because posts I would put up are only headlines. They couldn't ever tell the whole story. People don't know the depth and breadth of which I've lived, the experience of, and I don't know the struggle people are in. I see maybe a post about Trump or an anger here or like a video confession, but that doesn't give me the larger context. And and living in that place, I had friends who kept being like, God, your posts are they just make you seem so unstable. You just seem like really just not like you're not okay. And then that felt shaming Bill Burr was like, now with shaming shame. Like sometimes you need shame to like.
I saw that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So the drive between push and pull energy is masculine energy. For me was push energy. Make it happen. Go get it. Go after it. Grab, dominate, force. And with very little regard or thought to the problem I was solving or to the solution that I could actually be by just being me.
Awesome.
So this month, early on, I started asking, well, what would it be like for me to be feminine, to be in this energy? Which I'm surrounded by intensity now.
What intensity of what?
So there's a couple men, obviously the incident on Facebook about having that really aggressive energy come towards me. I just met with somebody else yesterday that was a connection on Facebook, and it was sort of like, well, is there any business oriented stuff here? And it was like being in a wind tunnel of information about this particular person. It was just like coming at me, just like it was very like Hunter S. Thompson, just like stream of consciousness, just like this, where the only reason that I was like inserting myself into the relationship, right? Into I guess it's a relationship, into the conversation, into that piece. Also, the other person I met at the beginning of the year, who is this classic, like bleeding artist heart, deep feeling, brooding individual, which is a level of intensity. So it's almost like as I've chosen to switch into pull energy, into feminine energy, I'm getting to experience like myself of what it must have been like to interact with me over these last couple of years, of these really deeply and feeling intensity, this super aggressive, cutting, sharp Italian intensity, this stream of consciousness never stops, doesn't even slow down to take a breath intensity. And I'm like, dear sweet Jesus. Right? What else is possible if I just pause? So the right relationship for me is the other thing that rushed in after getting off of social media was loneliness. I'm finally like, okay, loneliness, my old friend. The pain that I was anesthetizing by reaching for the next guy, the next sexual experience, the next escape, the next outlet, the next swipe, the next information upload. And I will say there were some magical moments. There were some serendipitous moments that were organized through Facebook. There's no denial of that. But I noticed that pain, the messages in pain are where riches lie. Where riches
So how
really
much would
are.
you say when you were really engaged with social media did you endure? Do you know what I mean?
It's like this really ironic amplification. Again, you build a tolerance because the reaching for social media is I think Brene Brown says narcissism is the deepest wound, right? Of not having a sense of being worthy of this life. And I'm paraphrasing the essence of her stuff. It's not.
I read her work, but I don't remember hearing that. But
Yeah.
as you say it, I'm looking at several different things right now going, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Really?
The deepest of all wounds. So
it's interesting because I think we all carry a little bit of, as Louis C.K. says, that forever lonely, forever empty inside of us. Because it's really hard to reconcile being a spirit in a body, being an infinite being in the land of the third dimensional land of experience, experiential action, causation, those types of things that you can't. I don't know, that fulfillment has to be balanced with this sense of always chasing after the next thing. So.
This is called an awkward pause.
Yeah, this is called one of those moments where the realization is like onboarding right now. Is how much could I tolerate my pain? I was feeding it with narcissism. I was numbing it with narcissism. More selfies, more pictures of me. And don't get me wrong, in my life, I enjoy putting on makeup. I like dressing up and being these different characters that you put on a velvet dress and somehow you're Scarlett O'Hara, or you put on a leather jacket and somehow you're a member of the T-Birds from Greece, and how quickly these the spectrum of experience can show up. But I was like that saying when Native Americans say photographs take your soul. Mm-hmm. Selfies were doing that. It was like, I have to capture this moment. And then, and getting off social media, I realized it was a violence against myself to be hurling those pictures of me for strangers to look at. Strangers, people I don't know. I have no idea of their storyline, their background, their disorders.
And essentially, getting back to it, you're pushing it on them.
Push.
Yeah. This is not going for a walk and making a decision about who you look at.
Yeah.
Or what gets your attention.
Yeah.
Or maybe a little, but no, it's
push. It was here. This is here I am. This is my persona. This is how I want you to see whatever. And I chose a lot of times to go online with no makeup, rolled out of bed. That felt like, and then sometimes I do my voices So long story short is that as we round the corner on this, I'm healthier. I have more space in my life. I'm starting to feel my feelings again. I'm starting to really be able to prioritize, like asking for deep relationships, and they're starting to show up. Now, whether they last, and I've noticed in my lifetime, my deep relationships have been like rings of a tree. I've had my deep relationships as a childhood with Amy Ramos, who for 11 years we were friends and we experienced that together. And then I moved and then a new relationship came in, my friend Helen, where we were really tight. There was a lot of watching of Sex in the City and like shoulder rubs and talking about biology, and then college passes by and the next ring of the tree. And then moving here, there's people in Colorado that I would say are my history keepers. And I have another friend of 16 years who we touch base maybe 2-3 times a year and really catch up with each other. But there's like that long history. And there's just a feeling to that. There's just, and then recognizing, do I have that here now in my life? And the answer was like, I think it's possible. I think I haven't invested my time and energy and focus. The etymology of the word literally means a hearth for your fire, a place to put your fire. And the energy of fire is such, it can warm or be completely combustible. So a focused fire. So I'm recognizing just the need to pause, to feel the pain, the grief that has been with me, that has really, can be in the driver's seat without me knowing it. That shows up as urgency, being frantic.
Being not okay.
Being not okay. Faking that you're okay. That it only takes that one person. And I have to be that person for me first. That's stable. I'm here. I had this moment. I was driving. It was so interesting. One of my outfits, I dressed up like a late 1950s girl, ponytail to the side, red lipstick on, like the whole outfit, pencil skirt. And I was driving down to the University Club in Symphony Towers, which is this like,
I've been there, yeah.
Beautiful view of San Diego.
At the top.
Yeah, absolutely stunning. Because every Tuesday they have TED Talks, and I've been graced enough to be able to be invited as a guest to go to these. And so you have to dress in a certain way. So I was putting on the Ritz and I was driving down and I caught a glimpse of my eyes. The sun hit them, and as I was in traffic, because it's horrible traffic, and I caught them, and something about it was remarkable to the degree that I don't know what voice came through me, but I spoke out loud in the car. Don't you ever shrink for a man. Don't you ever hide who you are or think that you're less than powerful. Don't you ever fool yourself that you're not pretty or that pretty is even the highest degree of esteem. It's not your intelligence that matters. It may have gotten you this far, and in whatever the form your body takes, know that be grateful that you can work it, but don't ever shrink. Stop shrinking. Stop playing small and be who you are. Be who you are. And I was like, and I was saying my own name into the reflection. I was like, Rebekah, don't be who you are. And the time off of Facebook is a time to discover who that is. The time off social media is to discover who that is. If I'm not pushing, hurling myself into the dating world, hurling myself into the arms of these guys that don't give a fuck, hurling myself into like the business world without having any clue of what I'm actually solving or doing, right? Like,
hurling yourself into doing things that you think you should do.
Ugh.
And who's the should? Where's that coming from?
That just pressure to...
It's not... The should's never you.
Yeah.
It's always something or somebody else. Most of the time somebody else.
So yeah, so the energy of this is to say that, and I taking a month off. So it's like my life is like, I was like, do I get a rotary phone? But it's like this invitation of, we think we need to eat out because it's more convenient, because we're in such a rush, because there's the kids to blah, 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 blah. And I have to go. I can't stop. And I was like, if you just get off social media, there's more space where you're like, I don't have to eat out. I can actually go get groceries that my body requires to be healthy and wants to eat. Right?
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, I've been, we haven't seen each other for a while, and it's like I've been out a handful of times in the last month or so. And it was when my sister was down, visiting. But I've been thoroughly enjoying cooking. Yeah, and it's not like, I mean, I love cooking anyway. I like cooking for other people, but I decided to do it for myself. So it's like, it's a whole completely different experience.
What kindness can you be for yourself? Like, instead of ignoring the aches and pains in my body, I'm figuring out how can I create relationship with therapists that are really effective, that, where we can have that exchange of energy, to where like this vessel gets really taken care of, and that I know I have the capacity and the capability to do that, to reach out, to ask, and to receive. So I think that the thing I would say to wrap this up, and we'll talk about the perpetuation of narcissism through coaching, maybe in a podcast further.
Yeah.
We did that offline.
Yeah.
A little sprinkling of what's to come, but I will say that, in this moment, to be your own secure attachment, to show up for yourself, to not abandon yourself, to slow down, to have more space. And I'm exercising and lifting because it creates a more spacious body instead of this like rigid, trapped, I don't have enough time, I'm, kind of thing. And just a different way of being in the world. That is one of like discovery. And here's what I say is, when I've noticed there's an aspect of masculine energy, of push energy, that is violent. And spending so much time online started to be a violence to me because I was pushing myself out there in a lot of times thoughtless, reactive ways, instead of taking the time to breathe, to be introspective, to follow the natural rhythm of pull, of okay, well, all right, I need to receive this information, to go into preparation, to really cultivate it before I send these like fledgling ideas off into the world. Let me have the garden. Let the acorns become the saplings, become the oak trees, become the shade trees, become then to shed their acorns again, and then create forests from it. And to be able to go through the whole, because people call it the rat race. It's not a race.
Yeah.
I've listened to so many TED Talks. A 6-year-old with an iPhone can create a Facebook ad. It's not new. It's not original. Anybody can do that. It's part of the cacophony, the noise. If you know how to go into those deep places of relationship, form those, cultivate those, carry those forward, to be the energy of that, to stand as a solution to one of any problems out there, the smallest being how to pluck your eyebrows correctly, right? Like the small, like little nuanced things of beauty things, to the largest of how do we restore the rainforest? How do we come together with Trump in office? Whatever it is, like it takes space and spatial awareness and time, slowness, not hurrying up, to develop into the invitation, which is pull energy, to be the solution. Because people, that which you seek are seeking you. The people that have these problems are seeking you out. They're looking for you. You don't have to go running after them. Like
You don't have to chase anybody. Oops, we just started another 20-minute segment, I can tell.
Well, I think that's a really good place to end.
Yeah.
Is what would your life be like if you weren't running after things and away from things? Mm-hmm. And that's the invitation. So if you want help with these things, if you're curious what steps you can take to have a more fulfilled, spacious, joyful, easeful experience in your body and how you can navigate the challenge of loneliness, then I invite you to reach out to me at RebekahFreedom.com. That's REBEKAH freedom.com. Anything to add, John?
Definitely. So it's like I just want to let everybody know. I don't know if you're sitting in front of your computer listening to this podcast, but consider this, is that I expect that this is going to be close to an hour of a podcast. And if it was on your phone and you were having drive time, and if you could subscribe on your iPhone, Android device, you can go to Google Play Music and also iHeartRadio. So what's happening with podcasting, about 75% of the people are listening on your phone because they're on drive time, they're walking, they're exercising, they're doing a bunch of different stuff.
All right. I love you all so much. Go out in the world and get it.